cowbell is a significant symbol of Mississippi State.
It's just been a part of me ever since I can remember. It's not only a symbol of Mississippi State University, but it's a symbol for what we stand for here and how important our university is to all of us.
Every great organization needs a unifying symbol.
The history is a little bit vague as to exactly how it started. There's a myth about Mississippi State playing Ole Miss, and the cow with the bell around the neck wandered out on the field. Ole Miss was winning. The time they got the cow off, then Mississippi State came back and beat Ole Miss. I think that's a myth.
It's the very heart of what we are.
I think it's, I don't like the sound, but I mean, it's just kind of one of those things that really do.
I think primarily it's an outgrowth of being a land-grant institution. The land-grant institution being one that's primarily, when founded, was dedicated to the teaching of agriculture and engineering, the product of the Morrill Land-Grant College Act of 1862. I think that's a very significant reason that we keep the cowbell as a symbol.
There is, we go back to the 1930s or 1940s. We've heard that a cow ran onto the football field while we were playing Ole Miss and we won that game, and it became a symbol there. I also heard that shortly after that they used to bring a cow to the football game and so forth. But regardless of how it came about, it's ours now. And when you see a cowbell in the hands of someone or in the office of someone, pretty much you know that they're a Mississippi State fan, loyal, true, and true.
In the 1970s, mid-1970s, it was made illegal by the SEC, something that we were not allowed to bring in stadiums. But with it being a part of our university history, something that we're all tied to, it still made its way into stadiums.
You know how we lost it the first. We were playing at Auburn in Jackson, and the student section was right down in the end zone, and Auburn, under Coach Jordan, was about to score, and they fumbled, and he said because they couldn't hear because of the cowbells. And he took that protest to the SEC, and they first outlawed the cowbell.
Obviously, we faced problems with the cowbell. There were problems with, when it was illegal for the 30-year period of keeping it out of the stadium. It was still getting in the stadium. People were sneaking them in, but it's hard to regulate. There have been problems with legally as far as disobeying the rules. Could play for the SEC. I can see the SEC's and our rival schools' thoughts on that. And when there's a rule in the book and it's just literally being disobeyed, obviously there's some pushback on that.
Well, whenever I was a freshman, I would always have like a huge purse and just put the cowbell on the bottom of the purse and just put everything else on top of it.
But also we faced issues like a cowbell lawsuit. There's a student who was at a football game who got hit in the head with a cowbell and pressed charges against not only Mississippi State and the student who did it, but our university president, other people from the university, and the SEC. They actually named the commissioner of the SEC in this lawsuit as well. So it's something that we were afraid might hinder us in trying to keep the tradition.
I did. When I would come to the games with my family, we always snuck one in. Everyone that we tailgated with snuck one in, and if you didn't have it, then it was considered more wrong than actually having one.
Well, 2 years ago, we were at the risk of losing it forever. And, people may say we already had it lost, it was illegal. Yes, it was, but there was no fines being put in place. We're on the brink of having fines up to $100,000 per game if we were caught ringing them or having the stadium legal.
More than just a symbol that's used at an athletic event. I mean, you hear the cowbell ringing at wedding receptions and at personal dinners. You hear them ringing at birthday parties, at anniversaries. You singing in the offices of our alumni and friends of Mississippi State University.
Dr. Keenan and Scott Strickland came up with a plan to try to create a compromise with the athletic director and the presidents to be able to ring our cowbell at times in our stadium that wouldn't interfere with the opposing team's play. Because that's the biggest argument against the cowbell by our opposing teams is that it is distracting on the field of play, which we can be just as distracting by yelling. And so, in order for us to preserve that symbol, the compromise came about. And something that's been put in place to where if we do violate that policy, we're going to face significant fines.
Well, Scott Strickland and President Marking have done an outstanding job in bringing our cowbell back to where we can ring them legally at football games. You know, probably another president or another athletic director may not have to agree on, but President Keenan and athletic director Strickland are Mississippi State graduates, so they know the importance of the cowbell, and just so proud of them and what they did. But not only proud of those two individuals for getting it started, but also proud of our student body and our alumni for a ringing responsibility.
In the 2010 season, we were fined $35,000 for misuse of cowbells. And those fines are that are not easy to take on our athletic budget, especially our football budget. We're trying to compete in the toughest conference in the country. That $35,000 fine is not something easy for us to take. But this year it's worse. If we were not compliant with one game, we were going to get a $50,000 fine for that one game, and then up to a $100,000 fine the next game. And it's going to increase over time to make it where we have to abide by the rules. And if we can't do it, if we can't abide by the rules, if we can't respect the bell, we will lose that tradition in our stadium, and it will have to be enforced.
It was really exciting. I think everyone was really excited because, people always bitch about how it's annoying and stuff, and the other team hates it, but it was a huge deal when we were allowed to have it in the games. So.
I thought it was fun to actually have it and be able to ring it, be able to walk in with it and be proud of it, especially one that I had decorated and one that I got, not one from my parents. Yeah, it was fun.
There's a lot of challenges socially faced with this. There's our rivals don't want to see us succeed in this. They don't want to see us have the cowbell. But I think it's something that there's really no way to argue with the rules we have in place now. We are not affecting the play on the field. We are just honoring our symbol and our tradition.
That loud does it stop the other team from thinking any more than yelling or cheering or what other things you can do in a game.
And that I do not care at all what the external outside belief or opinion of the cowbell is. I don't care, and I think there are tons of us that don't care, and I think that's one of the things that gives it its strength. So with that said, what do I think the perception is? I think that the world hates it, and that makes me love it even more.
Well, it did kind of suck, when they took Cowbell away, just because it was it felt like part of the school was taken away, even though it wasn't, And then I'm sure that's how y'all felt when the cowbell was taken away.
Well, honestly, I think Colonel Reb has less to do with the actual game than the cowbell does, but I still don't see why either should have been or should be eliminated or reduced.
And I really honestly wasn't planning on getting a cowbell, but then when they got me one for my birthday, they surprised me with it. I was really kind of excited.
I take great pride in it. When Ole Miss people want to call us Cow College, so much of what Mississippi State has, they are very concerned about. You understand? One of the very leading scholars at Ole Miss one time told me that the people at Ole Miss are much more jealous of what Mississippi State has than Mississippi State people are jealous of what Ole Miss has.
You name one thing at SEC that's got more tradition behind it than the cowbell.
So it's not viewed by our rivals and our competitors the same way we view it, but at the same time, they know who it represents, and that's important with the symbol. When they see the cowbell, they don't think of the one thing, they think of Mississippi State.